Recently, a new disturbing video has emerged that sends chills down the spine as regards the brutality of cartels in Mexico. The footage, which has quickly gone viral, shows the harrowing final moments of 20 men believed to be affiliated with a cartel, kneeling and awaiting execution by a rival gang. This stark and horrific portrayal highlights the relentless gang wars and lawlessness gripping Mexico's southern states, particularly Guerrero. As cartel brutality escalates, communities are left traumatized, and the Mexican government faces mounting pressure to confront this deeply entrenched and violent underworld. The disturbing video. Mexican gang violence is a chilling reality that has gripped the nation, casting a shadow over its vibrant culture and rich history. In the southern regions, the battle for dominance among powerful drug cartels has turned once peaceful communities into war zones. The state of Guerrero, notorious for its brutality, has witnessed unspeakable horrors, including the decapitation of gang members. The latest in the gang war in Guerrero shows 20 Mexican cartel members lined up on their knees and taunted moments before they are executed by a rival gang. The discovery of 20 bodies sent shockwaves through the southern state of Guerrero. On the 2nd of July, Mexican officials were alerted to a video circulating on social media depicting a gruesome scene. The video, uploaded on the 28th of June, showed men identifying themselves as members of the Sinaloa cartel standing over the bodies in a dumper truck. They claimed these were members of a rival gang operating on the border between Guatemala and Mexico. The victims, all male and dressed in black tactical vests, bore the unmistakable signs of execution-style killings, with bullet wounds riddling their bodies. Most of the corpses were found inside the truck, while 3 more lay on a nearby dirt track. The Chiapas prosecutor's office, upon receiving reports from locals who stumbled upon the bodies, launched an investigation into the incident. The impact on the community has been profound. Residents of Guerrero, already living under the shadow of cartel violence, were gripped by fear and uncertainty. The public execution of gang members in Mexico raises significant legal and ethical questions, both within the country and from an international human rights perspective. These acts of violence, often carried out with impunity, challenge the very foundations of justice and human dignity, prompting a critical examination of the legal frameworks and ethical principles at play. Legally, public executions are a blatant violation of both Mexican law and international human rights standards, but apparently gang members do not care about any of those. For them, it's all about a show of power and marking their territories. The Mexican Constitution guarantees the right to life and prohibits cruel and inhumane treatment. Despite these legal protections, the reality on the ground often tells a different story, as cartels operate with little regard for the rule of law. The lack of effective law enforcement and judicial oversight allows these acts of violence to continue unchecked, undermining the legal system and eroding public trust in the authorities. Innocent Mexicans have resorted to protecting themselves and always staying alert for things they have no hands in. From an international perspective, public executions are condemned under various human rights treaties and conventions. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations in 1948, enshrines the right to life and the prohibition of torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Similarly, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, to which Mexico is a party, obligates states to protect the right to life and ensure that no one is subjected to arbitrary deprivation of life. The ethical considerations surrounding public executions are equally complex. At the heart of the issue is the fundamental question of human dignity and the value of human life. Public executions, by their very nature, dehumanize both the victim and the perpetrator, reducing individuals to mere instruments of violence and retribution. This dehumanization is compounded by the public spectacle of these executions, which serve to desensitize communities to violence and perpetuate a culture of fear and brutality. The ethical implications extend beyond the immediate act of execution to the broader societal impact. Public executions contribute to a cycle of violence and retribution, where justice is replaced by vengeance and the rule of law is supplanted by the rule of the gun. This cycle undermines the social fabric and continues to breed a climate of fear and insecurity, making it difficult for communities to heal and rebuild. International human rights organizations have consistently called for an end to public executions and other forms of extrajudicial killings. These organizations emphasize the need for accountability and justice, urging governments to investigate and prosecute those responsible for such acts of violence. They also advocate for comprehensive legislative reforms to strengthen the rule of law and protect human rights, including measures to address corruption, improve law enforcement, and ensure access to justice for all. Efforts to address the legal and ethical challenges posed by public executions must also consider the broader context of organized crime and violence in Mexico. This includes addressing the root causes of violence, such as poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunity, which fuel the cycle of crime and retribution. By tackling these underlying issues, it is possible to create a more just and equitable society where the rule of law prevails and human rights are respected. Education and awareness-raising efforts play a crucial role in promoting a culture of human rights and justice. By fostering a better understanding of the legal and ethical principles at stake, communities can work together to challenge the normalization of violence and advocate for change. This includes engaging with local leaders, civil society organizations, and international partners to build a collective movement for justice and accountability. Ultimately, the legal and ethical considerations surrounding public executions in Mexico highlight the urgent need for a comprehensive and coordinated response. By addressing the root causes of violence, strengthening the rule of law, and promoting a culture of human rights, it is possible to break the cycle of violence and build a more just and peaceful society for Mexicans. But what exactly are the activities of these gangs striking fear in the hearts of innocent Mexicans? Gang activities in Mexico. The history of cartel conflicts in Mexico is a turbulent tale that has deeply influenced the country's social and political fabric. It all began in the mid-20th century when Mexico emerged as a pivotal player in the global drug trade. The 1970s marked a significant turning point as the demand for narcotics, particularly cocaine, surged in the United States. This demand catalyzed the rise of powerful drug cartels in Mexico, transforming small, independent operations into formidable criminal enterprises. One of the earliest and most influential cartels was the Guadalajara cartel, which dominated the drug trade in the 1980s. Led by notorious figures such as Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, the cartel established a sophisticated network for trafficking cocaine, marijuana, and heroin. However, internal conflicts and pressure from law enforcement led to its eventual fragmentation, giving rise to new and more violent cartels. The 1990s saw the emergence of the Tijuana and Juarez cartels, both of which engaged in fierce battles for control of key trafficking routes into the United States. These rivalries were marked by brutal violence, as each cartel sought to eliminate its competition and expand its territory. The Tijuana cartel, led by the Arellano Felix brothers, became infamous for its ruthless tactics, including assassinations and kidnappings. Meanwhile, the Juarez cartel, under the leadership of Amado Carrillo Fuentes, known as the Lord of the Skies, utilized innovative smuggling techniques to dominate the drug trade. As the new millennium approached, the landscape of cartel conflicts in Mexico continued to evolve. The capture and extradition of key cartel leaders led to further fragmentation and the rise of smaller, more aggressive groups. The Sinaloa cartel, led by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, emerged as a dominant force, known for its sophisticated operations and strategic alliances. The cartel's influence extended beyond Mexico's borders, making it one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. The 21st century has been marked by an escalation in violence as cartels vie for control of lucrative drug routes and territories. The Zetas, originally formed by former military personnel, became known for their extreme brutality and military-style tactics. Their rise to power challenged the dominance of established cartels, leading to bloody confrontations across the country. The Jalisco New Generation cartel, another formidable player, has also gained notoriety for its violent methods and rapid expansion. These rivalries have not only resulted in countless deaths, but have also had a profound impact on Mexican society. Communities caught in the crossfire suffer from widespread fear and instability as cartels exert control over local economies and politics. The Mexican government, despite efforts to combat cartel violence, faces significant challenges in dismantling these powerful organizations. Over time, the nature of cartel conflicts has evolved, with alliances shifting and new players emerging. The use of technology and social media has also transformed the way cartels operate, allowing them to communicate and coordinate more effectively. Despite these changes, the core motivations of power and profit remain unchanged, driving the relentless cycle of violence that continues to plague Mexico. Understanding the historical context of cartel conflicts is crucial to grasping the complexities of the current situation. As the battle against gangs and cartels in Mexico raged on, the strategies and policies implemented by successive Mexican presidents played a crucial role in shaping the country's approach to combating organized crime. In 2012, President Enrique Peña Nieto took office with a promise to shift the focus away from the military militarized approach that had defined his predecessor's tenure. Recognizing the limitations and unintended consequences of using military force, Peña Nieto sought to enhance law enforcement capacity and prioritize public safety. Under Peña Nieto's administration, the government introduced a series of reforms aimed at strengthening the police force and improving coordination among various law enforcement agencies. This strategy was designed to address the root causes of violence by investing in social programs and community development initiatives. The initial results were promising, with a notable decrease in homicides and a sense of optimism that the tide was turning in the fight against organized crime. However, the optimism was short-lived. Despite the initial success, the violence soon resurged, driven by the persistent influence of cartels and the deep-rooted corruption within law enforcement agencies. By 2016, drug-related homicides had increased by 22%, and the discovery of mass graves highlighted the ongoing brutality of the conflict. The government's efforts to combat organized crime were further complicated by the capture of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, which led to a power struggle among rival factions and an accompanying increase in violence. In the face of these challenges, a new approach emerged with the election of Andrés Manuel López Obrador, popularly known as AMLO, in 2018. AMLO's campaign was built on the promise of a radical departure from the militarized strategies of the past. His hugs not bullets policy aimed to address the underlying social and economic factors that fueled violence, rather than relying solely on force. AMLO's approach was centered on poverty alleviation programs, the legalization of marijuana, and new sentencing guidelines for drug traffickers. He believed that by addressing the root causes of crime, the government could reduce the appeal of joining criminal organizations and create a more peaceful society. As part of this strategy, AMLO announced the creation of a new National Guard, a hybrid civilian police and military force designed to combat cartels while maintaining a focus on community engagement. The National Guard was intended to replace the military's role in domestic law enforcement, with a mandate to prioritize human rights and community relations. However, the implementation of this policy faced significant challenges. Critics argued that the National Guard was simply a rebranding of the military's presence, and concerns about human rights abuses persisted. Despite these criticisms, AMLO remained committed to his vision, believing that a focus on social programs and community development would ultimately lead to a reduction in violence. Despite AMLO's intentions, the results have been mixed. While there has been a marginal decrease in homicide rates, the country continues to report over 30,000 crime-related deaths per year. The violence has persisted, with attacks on journalists reaching record highs and anti-corruption reforms struggling to gain traction. The controversial aspects of AMLO's policies have sparked debate, with some arguing that a more robust law enforcement approach is necessary to tackle the entrenched power of the cartels. In recent years, Mexico's fight against gangs has seen significant developments, marked by an expanded role for the military in policing and controversial reforms that have sparked widespread debate. Despite initial intentions to reduce the military's involvement in domestic law enforcement, the government has doubled down on its approach, leading to a series of impactful changes in the country's strategy against organized crime. In August 2022, Mexico's Congress passed a reform that allows the military to carry out domestic law enforcement duties until 2028. This decision was made despite earlier promises by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, known as AMLO, to transition to a civilian-led police force. The reform has been met with criticism from human rights groups who argue that military policing has led to abuses, including arbitrary detention, rape, and extrajudicial killings. These concerns highlight the ongoing tension between maintaining security and protecting human rights. The implications of this reform are far-reaching, as the military's expanded role in policing has raised questions about the treatment of civilians and the potential erosion of civil liberties. Critics argue that the military's presence in domestic law enforcement undermines the rule of law and creates an environment where abuses can occur with impunity. Despite these concerns, the government has continued to rely on the military as a key component of its strategy to combat organized crime. In April 2023, the Mexican Supreme Court issued a ruling that the National Guard must remain under civilian control, a decision that was intended to reinforce the separation between military and civilian law enforcement. However, AMLO has promised to bring the National Guard under the Army's command, further blurring the lines between military and civilian roles. This move has been criticized for contradicting the court's ruling and raising concerns about the militarization of law enforcement. The government's decision to grant the Navy full control of Mexico City's busiest airport in July 2023 to combat smuggling is another example of the military's increasing involvement in civilian affairs. Additionally, several other government functions, including large-scale infrastructure construction, tourism development, and customs oversight at ports of entry and exit, have have been transferred to the military. These developments reflect a broader trend of militarization that has significant implications for the country's governance and the protection of human rights. As Mexico prepares for a new chapter in its fight against gangs, President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum faces a series of challenges. Sheinbaum, AMLO's chosen successor, has expressed her intention to strengthen the National Guard, hire more police investigators, and invest in social programs for youth to address violence. However, critics argue that continuing AMLO's militarized approach will be insufficient to tackle Mexico's security issues and may exacerbate existing problems. Sheinbaum's administration will need to navigate the complex landscape of organized crime, balancing the need for security with the protection of human rights. The challenge lies in finding a strategy that effectively addresses the root causes of violence while ensuring accountability and transparency in law enforcement. The activities of these gangs have been very brazen, to the point where the public execution of the rival gang members has caused severe consequences for the people of Mexico. Consequences of the execution. The immediate impact of public gang executions on local communities is both profound and unsettling. When gang members execute their rivals in broad daylight, it sends a chilling message that no place is safe. This brazen display of violence instills a pervasive sense of fear among residents, who find themselves constantly looking over their shoulders. The once vibrant streets become eerily quiet as people retreat indoors, wary of becoming unintended victims in the ongoing turf wars. Community life is disrupted as local businesses suffer from decreased foot traffic, and schools become battlegrounds of anxiety rather than learning. Parents fear for their children's safety, leading to a decline in outdoor activities and social gatherings. The social fabric begins to unravel as trust erodes, not only between neighbors, but also towards law enforcement, who are often perceived as powerless against the might of organized gangs. This atmosphere of fear and uncertainty leaves communities in a state of paralysis, struggling to reclaim their sense of normalcy. The sociological effects of gang violence on youth are alarming. In communities plagued by public gang executions, young children are often caught in the crossfire, both literally and figuratively. Gangs, seeking to bolster their ranks, target these impressionable minds, offering a sense of belonging and protection that may be absent in their home environments. The allure of gang life is potent, promising recognition, identity, and a surrogate family to those who feel marginalized. This recruitment of young children perpetuates a vicious cycle of violence. As these youths are drawn into gang culture, they are indoctrinated into a world where violence is normalized and even glorified. The initiation rites, often involving acts of violence, serve to desensitize them to brutality, setting the stage for future conflicts. This cycle is difficult to break, as new generations are continuously pulled into the fray, unaware of the historical rivalries that fuel the ongoing violence. The impact on youth extends beyond those who join gangs. Innocent children, witnessing the violence around them, may develop trauma-related issues, affecting their mental health and academic performance. Schools, meant to be safe havens, become zones of tension and fear, with gang affiliations influencing social dynamics and leading to conflicts. The pervasive presence of gang violence stifles opportunities for positive development, trapping youth in a cycle of fear and limited prospects. All of these gang wars in Mexico have forced the United States' hands into things. The United States government has been worried about the video of gang members executing rival gang members in public and causing other mayhems in Mexico, and it would not want any unrest in the southern parts of its border, because that would result in a massive influx of refugees trying to get into the United States as they flee their home countries. This is already a huge problem, and further unrest in Southern America will only worsen the crisis. The battle between the United States and the drug cartels is a saga that has evolved over decades, with each chapter marked by significant events and policies that have shaped the course of this relentless struggle. It all began in earnest in the 1970s, with the rise of Colombian cartels and the infamous Medellin and Cali syndicates, which pushed the US government to take unprecedented steps in its fight against narcotics trafficking. The 1980s saw the introduction of the Comprehensive Crime Control Act, which expanded the powers of law enforcement and introduced mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses. This era also witnessed the birth of the Drug Enforcement Administration's DEA Operation Leyenda, a response to the brutal murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena in 1985. This operation marked a turning point, signaling the US government's commitment to pursue cartel members beyond its borders. As the 1990s unfolded, the focus shifted to Mexican cartels, which began to dominate the drug trade following the decline of their Colombian counterparts. The implementation of the North American Free Trade Agreement in 1994 inadvertently facilitated the cartel's ability to move drugs into the United States, prompting a new wave of anti-drug initiatives. The 21st century brought the Merida Initiative in 2008, a partnership between the US and Mexico to fight organized crime and improve border security. Throughout the 2000s, the United States continued to enhance its strategies, employing sophisticated surveillance, intelligence sharing, and financial crackdowns to dismantle the cartel's operations. The establishment of the Department of Homeland Security in 2002 and the subsequent launch of the Office of National Drug Control Policy's National Southwest Border Counter-Narcotics Strategy were pivotal in coordinating efforts across federal agencies. Despite these efforts, the cartels have shown remarkable resilience and adaptability, often staying one step ahead of law enforcement. The introduction of fentanyl into the drug market, a synthetic opioid far more potent than heroin, has led to a devastating increase in overdose deaths and added a new dimension to the fight against cartels. The use of force against cartels, especially on foreign soil, is a legal minefield fraught with international law considerations and the delicate balance of national sovereignty. The United States, in its pursuit of cartel kingpins and their sprawling networks, must tread carefully to avoid violating international norms and inciting diplomatic crises. The principle of state sovereignty is sacrosanct in international law, and any action taken without the consent of the Mexican government could be seen as an infringement on Mexico's territorial integrity. The United Nations Charter enshrines the inviolability of sovereign states, allowing the use of force only under specific circumstances such as self-defense or with Security Council authorization, neither of which are easily applicable to the fight against cartels. The debate intensifies when considering the concept of self-defense against non-state actors like cartels. While the US has at times interpreted the right to self-defense expansively, the international community remains divided. The notion that drug trafficking and associated violence could constitute an armed attack, triggering the right to self-defense, is contentious and lacks broad consensus. The introduction of fentanyl and the staggering loss of American lives have led some to argue that the cartel's actions could be seen as an ongoing attack against the US. However, this interpretation stretches the traditional understanding of an armed attack and could set a dangerous precedent, potentially undermining long-standing international legal standards. Moreover, the US Constitution itself presents hurdles for unilateral military action. While the executive branch has claimed broad powers under Article 2, any significant military operation typically requires congressional authorization. The War Powers Resolution further complicates matters, limiting the president's ability to engage in hostilities without congressional approval. Looking to the horizon, the United States government faces an array of future challenges in its enduring fight against the cartels. As these criminal organizations diversify their operations and exploit technological advancements, the US must anticipate and counteract these shifts with strategic policy directions. One of the key areas of focus is international cooperation. The cartels are not confined by borders. Their networks span continents, necessitating a global response. Strengthening partnerships with Latin American countries, particularly Mexico and Central American nations, is vital. These alliances could lead to joint operations, shared intelligence, and coordinated legal actions against cartel leaders and their assets. The success of these efforts hinges on mutual trust and the alignment of legal frameworks to facilitate cross-border collaboration. Domestic policy reforms also play a critical role in the future of this battle. The United States may need to reassess its approach to drug consumption, treatment, and rehabilitation, addressing the demand side of the drug equation. By reducing the domestic market for narcotics, the US can undermine the cartel's primary revenue stream. Additionally, the criminal justice system's handling of drug-related offenses is under scrutiny. Sentencing reforms and alternative approaches to incarceration for non-violent drug offenders could alleviate the burden on the system while focusing resources on dismantling the higher echelons of cartel hierarchies. The role of technology will continue to grow, both as a tool for the cartels and for law enforcement. Investing in cyber capabilities to combat the digital aspects of cartel operations, such as dark web marketplaces and cryptocurrency laundering, will be essential. The US must also safeguard against the potential use of drones, encrypted communications, and other emerging technologies by cartels. Finally, addressing the root causes of cartel power, such as poverty and corruption in affected regions, could yield long-term benefits. By supporting economic development development and the rule of law in these areas, the US can help create an environment where cartels are less likely to thrive. In the modern era, the United States has honed its strategies and operations to combat the sophisticated and ever-changing tactics of the cartels. At the heart of this approach is a robust inter-agency cooperation that leverages the strengths of various government entities. The DEA, FBI, ATF, DHS, and the US Coast Guard, among others, work in concert to disrupt and dismantle the complex operations of these criminal organizations. Intelligence sharing has become a cornerstone of these efforts. The High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas (HITA) program and the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Forces (OCDETF) exemplify the collaborative spirit, pooling resources and information from federal, state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies. This synergy is crucial in painting a comprehensive picture of cartel activities, from production and trafficking routes to financial transactions. Technological advancements have given US agencies an edge in this shadow war. Cutting-edge surveillance tools, such as drones and satellite imagery, provide real-time intelligence on cartel movements. Sophisticated data analysis platforms, like the Consolidated Priority Organization Target (CPOT) list, enable the identification and targeting of key cartel figures. Cryptocurrency tracing units delve into the digital realm, following the money to hit the cartels where it hurts, their finances. Border security has also been ramped up, with initiatives like the Border Enforcement Security Task Force (BEST) teams focusing on high-risk trafficking zones. These specialized units combine the expertise of multiple agencies to secure America's borders and points of entry against the influx of drugs and cartel operatives. Furthermore, the US government has expanded its reach through international partnerships, providing training, resources, and support to countries grappling with cartel violence. If you enjoyed this video, do well to click on any of the cards displayed on your screen.